This is the first regular service of the new year, 2012. It's good to see all of you here this morning. And it is good to see because a couple of weeks ago I broke my glasses, and so I have new glasses this morning, and I can I can't see you better, but I can see you better than when it was broken. My far sight is okay. I can't read anything without my glasses. When it broke, it was Christmas morning, and I thought, Christmas we'll just work our way through the day. But then I started to think about the services that I would have to do in the next week, and I was very concerned because I was wondering, how am I going to read the sutras? I cannot see my okyohon. I can't anything. Fortunately, Dr. Shimori saw me on Monday morning, and I got my glasses by Thursday, and it was a very quick turnaround, and I can see again. I was looking at my monitor. I'm very stubborn sometimes, and so I was using just my one glass like this, and I was looking at the monitor, and I said, "Oh yeah, that works." But yeah, it was no good. Tape didn't work. I was really trying to get my glasses to tape, and it was the bridge that broke, so I thought maybe if I tape it together, then it'll hold together, but not enough there to do that. But so now I have a new look. I wanted to have dark rim glasses. I don't know, it kind of wanted to take me back to my retro days. I guess retro is now doing stuff that are old. I haven't brought out my wide bottom pants, but that may come. Yesterday I attended a funeral service of an old friend. Some of you may know Jane Imamura, who passed away late last year, and her funeral service was conducted at the Berkeley Buddhist Temple. And I had an opportunity to attend her service. And Mrs. Imamura and her husband, Kammo, Reverend Kammo Imamura, have been a long part of my life, although I hadn't seen her for maybe 20 years. As she began to experience a dementia, she became more reclusive and kind of stayed in the house and didn't go out very much. Even the people in Berkeley didn't have very much opportunity to visit with her. But on the occasions that when they moved in 1975 back to the mainland, I was still in Hawaii, and then I went to Oakland where I met with them occasionally, and then I was transferred to the Northwest, and then from the Northwest didn't have very many opportunities to come down to the Bay Area and visit with them. And so it was just really infrequent the time that I had an opportunity to meet with them. But they were a very strong influence in my life. My Buddhist name is Kango, and the kan that's the first character in my name comes from Reverend Imamura's name. So when I was going to leave for Japan, I asked Imamura Sensei, who was Socho at that time in Hawaii, I asked if he would suggest a name. And he thought about it for a while, and a few days later he came back and he said, use this. And it was the first character from his name and a variant of the name, my Japanese name, Satoshi, and combining these two formed the Homyo, Kango. And at first, you get a name like Kango. I mean, there's some other cooler names. Kango. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just that it wasn't really kind of something that I immediately took to. The only person that really calls me Kango regularly is Tsumura Sensei, and I think he does, well, I don't think he does it to spite me, but or to harass me. I think he uses it affectionately, and he calls me Kango. But I mean, there is this deep connection that at first, like many things, we don't really appreciate at first, and then you have to do it, so you kind of use it and use it and use it. And the more you use it, the more it becomes a part of you, and the more it becomes something that at first is maybe just kind of just a regular part of you, and you just use it. And then you begin to kind of gain an appreciation for it as time goes on. Even simple things can have that, like the Nembutsu, Namamidabutsu. It's a simple thing. And we may just kind of, as the Dharma school kids, they would repeat it all the time and not really know what it means or its implications or its significance and its meaning. And even if it's explained to you, it's not until it starts to settle in that it can have an importance or take on importance. We see that in art sometimes. We kind of get a feel for what that might mean in art. There's a term in Japanese, or actually it's two terms, sabi and wabi. It's a quality that an object might take on after, and it's a simple object, something like even a teacup. I mean, we see this in ocha. There are masterpieces that come out of the kiln, but often things that are used take on a character that cannot be imbued into that object unless it's been used, unless it's been cared for and for a long time. One of the things that I learned was that often when something is broken and repaired, it can actually take on more value because that object which has been broken and repaired now, again, the feeling or the experience that has gone into the care of this object is expressed even more as that object is repaired. We kind of, in this society now, in these times, we want things to have value and meaning. We want to understand right away. And often it's not until much time has passed that we can begin to allow that value to come into our lives, to think about what we are experiencing. This song that we just sang at our altar, as we were singing it, in the Dharma school service we sang Fly Fly, Buddha Loves You. And that's a composition by, the music is by Mrs. Imamura. Kimi Hisatsune was the what do you call it? She wrote the lyrics. Lyricist. There's a term called it sounds like lobotomist, but that's not it. No. See, I'm experiencing a lobotomy, but what is that term? I guess it's more associated with musical theater. It's a person who writes the words for. I'm sure you'll remember it. You'll think about it 2 o'clock in the morning, and it'll come to you, and you'll say, "Yeah, no, don't call, don't call." But the music that we sang this morning was by Mrs. Imamura, and although many of the people, probably you as well, have not had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Imamura, you're influenced by that, by her music. But the song that we just sang at our altar, it's called Buddha, what's it called now? Amida Shrine. And in parentheses under it, it's called At Our Altar. That's the way I remember I was introduced to this song. And she was the choir director in Hawaii when I learned this song. So it was now many years ago that I was introduced to this. And it was one of the first gathas that came out of Japan in English that was being introduced here in the West. And so it was a real big deal. And we sang this in parts. As I was singing this, I was thinking, oh yeah, this is something that is also a part of my life that has been influenced by Jane Imamura. And this, of course, is my experience, right? And so you need to kind of look into your own experience and think about the people that have had influence in your life. And again, it may not be something immediate, and it takes time. It just takes time for things to settle in. Taitetsu Unno described it as a kind of a sediment. Before we know it, things have settled into our lives. We don't see these particles, or we don't appreciate these particles that kind of drift slowly onto the bottom of our lives. But they're there, building a foundation. They're there, kind of settling in, establishing the foundation from which we live our lives. Shakyamuni Buddha would, on occasion, would describe the life of a incense handler, someone who makes incense. And the life of the Dharma is like this incense handler, who, after years and years of handling the incense, his body takes on the fragrance of the incense. Unknowingly, over time, handling this day in, day out, the work of preparing, of making, of selling the incense, his body takes on the fragrance of the incense. Our lives are now especially seem to go so quickly. Everything is at hand, what we need. And if we don't, then we can certainly get it, or we know where we can get it. But things that we may not be so mindful of or to think about has been a part of our life for a very long time. And we may, if we are mindful, see in those experiences something that is meaningful, that may have had an influence in our life that we may not have thought about until something helps us to see more clearly. Buddhism always encourages us to see things as they are, not through our likes and dislikes, but like I didn't like Kongo at first. You would say zeitaku, in Japanese. What is zeitaku? How would you describe zeitaku? Zeitaku? Extravagant? Kind of, yeah, but something of value that's kind of taken for granted, kind of a feeling, something that's important, so kind of like that. I received a name, I asked for a name, I received a name, and he's gone through the effort of thinking about it. And I appreciated it at that time, but I think I appreciate it more now. Something that has settled in, to my life, that has been this ongoing part of who I am. And again, it's my experience, and you need to look carefully in your experience. There is when Shakyamuni Buddha experienced his enlightenment, one of the stories of that period of time was his encounter with Mara. And Mara is this demon king who wanted to unseat Shakyamuni from his attempt to be freed from the difficulties of this experience. And so Mara sent first his daughters to try and seduce him, and then when that didn't work, he sent his armies, and that didn't work. And so Maya finally tried to persuade Siddhartha from the seat of enlightenment with rational argument. And he said, experience enlightenment. You've gained this, the seed of enlightenment. You are worthy of enlightenment. Now you should allow yourself to experience that fully and extinguish, go out, experience the full enlightenment, nirvana. And Shakyamuni Buddha thought about it and said, no, I'll go out and I'll share this with others. And Mara's reply was, but nobody's going to understand. Nobody's going to understand what you're talking about. And Siddhartha thought about it for a while, and he said, well, even if one person understands, I'll go out and share this with others. That character, that Mara, that demon king, appears in other stories about Shakyamuni Buddha. And there was a time when Mara and an attendant was kind of walking along and saw someone who was meditating, doing walking meditation, and suddenly saw on the face of this person who was meditating kind of light up. And said, and the attendant to Mara asked, what happened here? And Mara said, he discovered some piece of truth. And so he lit up, he was excited about having discovered something that was true. And so the attendant said, aren't you worried? Don't you want to kind of, if people see the truth, then you're going to be out of work. You're trying to kind of confuse people. And Mara said, no, I don't have to worry. Because pretty soon that truth will become just a belief. And it no longer will be the truth, but will be something embedded in belief rather than truth itself. To see things simply as they are is not to hold on to it, to allow it to become what it is, to allow it to express itself in our lives. We cannot force that cultivation. We cannot make something be other than it is, but rather we simply allow it to express itself in our lives. We work at trying to understand the world. We work at trying to do the things that will help us better experience and understand what we're doing. And we have to place some effort in what we're doing. But that effort simply is to uncover what is true and real. In our lives, in the world around us, in our experience, to uncover what is true and real, and to be able to appreciate simply what is there. Nothing that is, as Shakyamuni Buddha said, not hidden within a class 10, but rather open and free to be able to experience things simply as they are. In Jodo Shinshu, we understand how difficult that is. Shinran understood that even through great practice, it is indeed difficult to arrive at that understanding. And so in Jodo Shinshu, in this school of Buddhism, we simply recognize how life moves us in the direction of awakening. That life, infinite and boundless wisdom and compassion, moves us in that direction. These are things that I hadn't, regarding the life of Kamo and Jane Imamura, that I hadn't thought about for a long time. And yet, sitting there experiencing that yesterday at the funeral of Mrs. Imamura, these thoughts, these experiences, the reflections, help me to better understand how my life is truly made up of many infinite causes and conditions. Things that I am unaware of, things that are part of my life that I may not be mindful of, and yet is there, sustaining me, supporting me. And for that, we express our gratitude simply by saying Namo Amida Butsu. It's not something that we can immediately or suddenly take on, understand, but over time, I'll learn to appreciate, allowing it to, like the sediment that builds the foundation from which we live our lives, allowing it to settle in into our lives. Okay, thank you very much. Yep.